All right, what's going on, guys? Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Monday edition of the Chief Zone podcast. Thank you all for joining me tonight as we continue to discuss Chiefs training camp. Had a chance to go out there today to check out the Chiefs, and it was certainly an interesting day for the Chiefs, a better day for the defense than it was the offense. I'll tell you guys some of the highlights, still some positives that can be taken away from today's offense as well. And I'll get into the dynamic of today's practice where the defense seemed to thrive much more than the offense. And also, we do hear from Clark Hunt. And as you can imagine, a majority of the conversation in his press conference revolved around the stadium discussion. So we'll weigh in on that, talk about what he had to say. And also, there is a reason why one NFL team continues to fail. Let's just put it that way. We'll discuss all of that here on this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. A quick reminder that this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. I got my tickets for Chiefs games this year, all courtesy of my friends over at SeatGeek. And if you guys want to catch any NFL college football action this upcoming football season, go to SeatGeek.com, and new customers can put in my promo code FARZIN and you'll save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com. Get your ticket and at checkout. Put in my promo code FARZIN if you're a new customer, and you'll save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. All right, we are live on X, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Appreciate all of you guys watching live on all of those networks. Appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Hey, weigh in on the conversation. Let me know your thoughts on anything as we roll on throughout the night here, and I'll read some of you guys' comments as we go throughout the podcast as well tonight. Let's start with the defense today, because I mentioned today was more of a good day for the defense than it was the offense. It just felt like the defense just seemed to get the best. The defensive line got the best of the offensive line in a lot of the reps today. One notable moment was Ashton Gelati, who had one of the best plays from the defense, beating Jalen Moore on a quick move to get to Patrick Mahomes. Mike Pennell also on the same play. It looked like, it was kind of hard to tell from my angle, but it looked like he was working up against Kingsley Suamataia. He was able to get around and get to the pocket as well. And I mentioned Jalen Moore, and I'll get back to the defense shortly, but Jawan Taylor removed from PUP, and he is now practicing with the Chiefs. He's taking the reins as a starting right tackle, but he and Moore have been changing reps, taking turns there. There's been a rotation between the two guys. Not seeing that on the left side, and I'll get into that a little later on with Josh Simmons, but Andy Reid making it, well, I don't want to say making it clear, but hinting that there is some competition going on there. So I think that's what a lot of Chiefs fans would prefer, rather than Jawan Taylor being the week one guy. But we'll get into the offense a little later on. More positives from the defense. Nick Bolton had a couple of nice run stuffs today on Isaiah Pacheco. And this was a part of practice when the Chiefs were focusing just on running the football. They were lining up for their 11 on 11, but the focus was more on just running the football. And then they snuck a little play action here and there, but it was heavy runs, and the linebackers just seem to really show up for this portion of practice here. There was one positive from Elijah Mitchell when he was able to find a couple of holes during that portion of practice where they were just focusing on rushing the football. But in general, this defense was pretty good during that part of practice. So I liked what I saw from the linebackers and the defensive line against the run. Keep one thing in mind, and I think a lot of people forget about this. The Chiefs have not allowed a running back to rush for 100 yards in 26 consecutive games. Zamir White, remember that Chiefs game against the Raiders on Christmas? Yeah, that one. Zamir White from that game is the last player to rush for 100 yards. He's the last player. The last running back, I should say. Lamar Jackson had a 100-yard rushing game, but no, I mean, the Chiefs went up against Christian McCaffrey in the Super Bowl 58, that is. They went up against Saquon Barkley a year later in the Super Bowl. Derrick Henry, they played. I mean, all of these great running backs the Chiefs have gone up against. And the last running back to rush for 100 yards on the Chiefs is Zamir White. I think that's certainly a surprise to a lot of people. But it was good to see Nick Bolton do his thing. And I think it just shows how important it was re-signing him, bringing him back to this defense, especially being as good as it is. He wasn't the only linebacker to make plays today. The best play of the day came from Leo Chenal. Mahomes tried to throw a pass over Chenal's head, trying to connect with Tyquan Thornton, who, by the way, has been continuing to get more involved with the ones. Chenal tipped the pass to himself, but tipped it maybe a little too far from himself, so he dove for the ball and had an interception for himself. So the tip and the interception to himself. I think Chris Jones might have done something very similar several years ago where he actually ran it back for a pick six on one of those weird type of plays, which you don't see often from defensive linemen. But Chenal, not that this was a pick six, but Chenal, the tip and pick to himself. Coaches love that. Defensive coaches love that. Yeah, they go over the tip drill. That's something they practice, and Chenal able to show that off today. And I think Chenal is kind of an interesting player going into this season because this is someone who is in the last year of his rookie deal. Obviously, the Chiefs are starting to focus on their 2022 players. They gave the fifth-year options to Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis, of course, recently had that big extension. Trent McDuffie was talking to the media today, just talking about how he has a good relationship with his agent, and he's letting his agent handle all of that. But the anticipation is that expectation is that McDuffie will get that extension at some point from Kansas City. And then you've got other guys to consider from this draft class as well. A lot of defensive backs. I mentioned Chenal, who, of course, is a linebacker, but in the secondary, guys like Brian Cook, Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, Nazeeh Johnson, a lot of guys from that secondary part of that draft class. Sky Moore, is this going to be the last year of his time in Kansas City, or is he going to get cut before the regular season gets underway? A lot of things to really consider with that draft class there. A lot of defensive players, Isaiah Pacheco on the offensive side. So, and yeah, Leo Chenal, certainly a guy that's going to try to make a case for himself. And I think Kansas City certainly appreciates what Chenal has done, both defensively and on special teams. I know a lot of people think of Leo Chenal special teams in that Broncos game where he blocked that field goal when Denver was trying to come away with a walk-off win there in a low-scoring game. But I think the more significant special teams play Chenal made was in Super Bowl 58 when he blocked the PAT. If he doesn't get that, the Chiefs, remember, and the Chiefs got close to the end zone before regulation in before the end of regulation in Super Bowl 58. The Chiefs would have had to go for it rather than settling for the tie there. Had Chenal not tipped that field goal or blocked that field goal, the PAT. So Chenal's been a guy that's done the things that, just don't get talked about as much in the NFL. Special teams plays don't get noticed much by the average fan. Coaches always pay attention to that stuff. And I think the Chiefs highly value Chenal and what he does on special teams as well as on defense. I'm wondering what kind of a year he'll have defensively, because I think this is someone that can be a very good linebacker in the NFL. I just think he's on a team where, when Chenal got drafted, who were the linebackers? It was Willie Gay, Nick Bolton. I can't remember what year they brought in Drew Tranquill. I think it was 23, his first year with the Chiefs. So Chenal was not Tranquill was not on the team when Chenal got drafted, but they added him later. I think he's just on a unit where he just doesn't get noticed as much because the other linebackers get a lot of the attention there. But hey, man, this Chiefs linebacker group is pretty damn good. I've said for a long time, this, in my opinion, this position group is the best on the team. And I think the wide receiver room has a chance to improve drastically and kind of make a case for itself as to why they're the best position group on the Chiefs. The offensive line, I think that's more hopeful than actual expectations there. But I do like the linebacker room, and Chanel being a big part of that. We'll see what he does in his fourth year with the Chiefs. Another young player in Kansas City's defense made a really good play. This was when the twos were on the field. Gardner Minshew was trying to connect with tight end Robert Tonyan and Christian Roland Wallace, who had some moments last year, if you guys remember, as a rookie. CRW just dove to swat that pass away, put his hands out, full extension, and doesn't allow that pass to go to the hands of Robert Tonyan. Spectacular effort. Leo Chanel had the best play of the day. If it wasn't for him, I think Christian Roland Wallace would have had the best play of the day. Overall, the offense just wasn't in the zone today. Some overthrown passes, a bad pass from Mahomes at one point to Worthy, where Worthy had to really put in effort to try to make a very difficult catch. Got a hand on it, but wasn't able to pull it down. And it was on a short pass near the sidelines too. A couple of overthrown passes as well. And keep in mind, because the pads are on now, they have the referees out there, and they're basically blowing the whistle anytime a defense swarms in on the quarterback, rather than just letting the play continue. Obviously, can't touch a quarterback for very obvious reasons in practice, and that's the way it is across all 32 NFL training camps. But if you were judging just based on today, you would have your concerns. Now, listen, a lot of teams started training camp last week. A couple of them started the week before. When you have training camp going all the way, and I know the process of training camp continues, like for the Chiefs, even though they're going to pack up and leave St. Joe, the whole process is going to continue when they're back in their own facilities for the last couple of weeks. There are a lot of practices. They're practicing every 4 days, and then they take a break. At the end of the day, you'll have some bad practices here and there. Everyone will. So what's the Chiefs offense going to look like tomorrow? I think that's going to be the big question. I'm sure in today's film study, the offensive coaches certainly had a lot to go over with their players. There certainly was no shortage of that, and they were able to try to get some corrections out there to their players and hope that they improve on that for tomorrow. So hopefully we see a better effort from the offense. But hey, the defense, and here's the thing. When you go to training camp, no one wants to see highlights from Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, or any other defensive player across the NFL. All of these training camps are open to the public. So when you go to these training camps and watch these players practice, you go because you want to see the cool offensive plays. And I get that. But just because when the offense has all these plays, what does that say about the defense? Well, today was kind of the opposite of that, where it was the defense that really just thrived today. They shined. And the offense certainly has some work to do based on today's practice. Now, again, you don't just base things off of one practice. The Chiefs, I feel like, for the most part, offensively speaking, have done well in training camp, but today was just not their day. So if you're someone that's been to multiple training camp practices, then you'll know that. But if you're someone that was here just today, and today's the only day you got a chance to watch the Chiefs practice, probably not the most exciting practice to have attended. Just wasn't the offense's day today. Now, there were some highlights from the offense. We mentioned the running back drills where they were just focusing on running the football for a period. Elijah Mitchell had a couple of really good runs for the Chiefs. Nice holds built by Trey Smith on the right side, and also Jalen Moore. So that was encouraging to see. Kareem Hunt was involved more in short yardage situations. I know a lot of people would like to see Kareem Hunt maybe revert back to his old form, see if he can still play more often, which he did play a lot last year, but it seemed like he was utilized more for those short yardage situations than anything else for the Chiefs offense. And I've said for a while, I think this is going to be a running back by committee. I'm still high on Isaiah Pacheco. I think Isaiah Pacheco still has a chance to do some good things in the NFL. I know last year he didn't get a chance to show that, especially coming back from his injury. Hopefully with a full offseason, Pacheco will be able to be a better running back this season. I think that's going to be important to see. So Elijah Mitchell, how does he kind of fit into the fold? Kareem Hunt, obviously drafting Rashard Smith, who has been able to show off his speed in some of these practices here. That running back room is going to be very interesting. And I'm curious how that's going to look in the regular season. In the preseason, look, I don't know how much stock I can really put into the running back position, specifically with the players I mentioned. I think for a guy like Carson Steele, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. But if he has a preseason like he did last year, sure, there's a chance that he might make it difficult on the coaching staff, and there might be a difficult cut at the running back position, unless you want to put in 5 running backs and maybe you have one less tight end or receiver or offensive lineman. That is certainly an option for the Chiefs to explore in the coming weeks. Mahomes continued his connection with Rashee Rice, obviously waiting to see what kind of player Rashee Rice will be coming off of his injury. That's going to be very important. So I'm excited to see what that's going to look like. I think I know I mentioned this earlier this week with the wide receivers, which I'll get into shortly. Some of the depth guys. We don't need to see too much from the wide receivers, the key wide receivers in the preseason. I think you just want to see a little bit more so from Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, because they're both coming off a season where they missed a lot of time because of an injury. Let's see how they look, and hopefully they stay healthy. I mean, Hollywood Brown, the very first snap of the preseason last year. Great play, but boom, got hurt. On a tackle that didn't really look bad either. Just a basic hit, and unfortunately he had that injury that occurred with his shoulder there, and that set him on the sidelines for quite some time. Ended up being much longer than anticipated. So that was really unfortunate, because a lot of people were looking forward to Hollywood Brown, and I think that's why the Chiefs gave him a second chance to come back, because yeah, sure, he does have a bit of a history with injuries, but I think the risk outweighs the rewards with or the rewards right there. Just make it worth it, because Hollywood is someone that has a lot of upside, especially in this offense. That's what the Chiefs want from Hollywood Brown. And if you put him in there with Rice and Worthy, and we'll see what happens with Rice's suspension. I keep getting a lot of comments about that. People asking when we're going to get an answer on that. We don't know. We have no idea. So we'll have to see what ends up happening on that front. But Mahomes also continued his connection with Jalen Royals. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say the same things I've been saying about Jalen Royals, because you guys have already heard me say it multiple times. I did say today on social media, I'm ready to see this connection in a preseason game, and hopefully they can find a way to carry that over into the regular season, because on the first snap of 11 on 11, Mahomes connected with Jalen Royals, and then during the last set of the starting reps on 11 on 11, Mahomes ended with a pass to Royals. Tyquan Thornton was also involved with the ones a lot too. Now, he wasn't as active today as he has been maybe in past practices, but man, Royals is getting a lot of looks in camp with the ones. And that's kind of to my surprise. I know a lot of Chiefs fans were hyped up. And don't get me wrong, I was glad to see he made his way to Kansas City. But I don't know, maybe the Rice suspension has changed things. Not that the Chiefs would ever admit that, but I think the Chiefs are trying to see what they have in their depth and who could work well with Patrick Mahomes in the event Rice gets suspended at some point this year, you would imagine. Again, we don't know when it's going to come, but you would think that the announcement comes at some point. The NFL can be weird about this kind of stuff, so we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what happens on that front. Let's see. What else from the offense? There was one nice highlight where Mike Caliendo checked in as an eligible receiver. Mahomes was trying to throw the ball, and I can't recall who it was to. It was hard to tell. It wasn't Travis Kelce. Might have been Tanyan, but unable to catch it. Caliendo with a great effort to try to catch the ball. Now, screenshots out there showed that he actually was not able to pull it in. The ball made contact with the ground, but kind of a nice effort there. But I don't know. I mean, if you're last year, remember Wanye Morris? He checked in as an eligible receiver and caught a touchdown pass against the Bengals. Could Mike Caliendo be that guy this year? That's certainly something to be aware of for the Chiefs this season in terms of their trick plays. Let's talk about Clark Hunt, because he met with the media today, and obviously a lot of the press conference revolved around the whole stadium deal. He said that there's a sense of urgency to try to get a deal done soon. You're starting to hear that more and more. I know Mark Donovan in some of his comments recently talked about how they feel like they're closer than ever, his words. He continued to praise both, continuing echoing from the comments of Mark Donovan, praising both states, Kansas and Missouri, for their effort and in their commitment to really wanting to get a deal done. He said something pretty interesting today, and I'm not saying this is really the hint of all hints or anything like that, but he did say, and I'll read the exact quote, "There may be a development opportunity around the stadium in Kansas if they build a new stadium in Kansas. With the Truman Sports Complex," he says, quote, "we just don't feel outside the perimeter of the Truman Sports Complex that it's really a right area for development." He's refuting something, and I don't think this was meant to be directly at the mayor, which by the way, the mayor was at practice today, and I haven't had a chance to hear his comments, but I would imagine he was asked about it and was probably answering a lot of the same questions. But the mayor has said in one of his live streams that he feels that the city can do more to activate the area around the Truman Sports Complex. Because I think the idea is with the Chiefs and with the Royals, and when they're considering their stadium possibilities, the Royals want to go somewhere where there's an entertainment district. 119th and Knoll, boom, you've got it. There's a movie theater right across the street from the Asperia campus at Town Center and Park Place, and also some surrounding areas south of the Asperia where you have Johnny's Tavern in that area, the convention center not too far from there. Maybe there could be some joint events before or after a Royals game that you could do there. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities with that opportunity there. I know the Royals have also been looking at Washington Square Park, which is very close to Crown Center. I feel like it would really kind of reinvent Crown Center if they went there, but I'm not exactly sure if that's logistically a place that the Royals can go to, because that's just too small of an area. Again, I know the mayor's been beating that drum of Washington Square Park, but that area is just way too small to house a baseball team. I don't know how logistically that would work. Clark Hunt said, and Mark Donovan said this many times, and the survey to season ticket holders, they want, for the stadium to continue to be loud, and they want the tailgating experience to remain the same, if not better, and for there to be good parking. You have that in the Truman Sports Complex, great parking. So if they were to move to Kansas, one major priority would be to make sure there is a big parking lot like they do right now. And I would imagine some people might park at the Legends in order to make their way to the stadium. Clark Hunt did say that when it comes to building a brand new stadium and the whole creating a design and whatnot, that takes about 4.5 to 5.5 years. I mean, listen, you're in January of 25. So you got about 6 years left on this deal. They've got to make a decision very soon, because they want to be able to start mapping things out, whether it's for renovations or a new stadium. If they're doing this, if they're going to stay and renovate, they can kind of take their time with that. But if they're going to get a new stadium, they've got to work on it real quickly. And they chose to extend the Star Bond. Keep one thing in mind. The Star Bond's extension, they requested to extend the Star Bond. that was a Kansas deadline. That was not a Chiefs deadline. That was not an NFL deadline. The Chiefs could have said, oh, your star bond's expired? Cool. We still have this other option. No, they asked Kansas to extend it. And I think that's kind of what made people feel like Kansas could kind of be the favorite here. I don't know. I mean, I've gone back and forth on this. I thought Missouri had a chance when they were able to pass that vote, even though some of the senators at that vote admitted, and there was no pushback from the other senators, especially those who were heavily in favor of trying to keep the Chiefs, that Kansas has the better offer. Now, with a potential city and county assistance, maybe that could change the game. But the mayor, Quentin Lucas, did say on KCMO Talk Radio that that vote with the 50% assistance from the state, that's more than enough. His words, not mine. So I don't know. Here's my thing. I know the mayor is saying a lot of things. The mayor is not going to say, yeah, I think we're going to lose the teams. He does not want to be that mayor that let the Chiefs and Royals slip away. So he's always going to be optimistic publicly. But I don't know. Sometimes I just hear what he says. So, for example, the mayor the other week or a couple of weeks ago, he said that North Kansas City was going to sign this bill, which they did. And he said it was for a Chiefs practice facility, and that's where they were going to have training camp. That's not what you heard from Mark Donovan the other week when they had that press conference to kick off training camp. So, listen, I don't know what the mayor's been saying lately and where he gets his comments, because they don't go in line with the governor. They don't go in line with Mark Donovan and Clark Hunt. They just don't. And he's even started to call out the Royals. I mean, he went from being very optimistic about the Royals to calling them out and saying that, hey, start making a decision here. It's been a very interesting, 16, 17 months at this point with all of that. But that's politics for you. I mean, this does go into that realm of politics, which is not fun at all. 300 Lusky, yeah, I appreciate you watching, man. Thank you so much. Let's read some comments here. Jamie says, hopefully we cut Sky Moore. Yeah, I think there's a possibility that it happens this preseason. If it's 6 receivers, he's got a chance, but a very slim chance at that point. Hopefully Andy is putting together a good running back group, because we need to run more. You know, I asked earlier today, what do you think Patrick Mahomes' passing touchdown total will be? And I said 35. Some people said that's too low. Well, first of all, what did Patrick have? 27 2023 and 26 this past year? Or maybe it was the other way around. Nonetheless, it was in the mid-20s, close to the mid-20s. I think 35, first of all, that'd be improvement. And I'm also being a little cautiously optimistic about that, because I was very high on the Chiefs offense. Thought they were going to look similar to 2018. Obviously, injuries had other plans, but I still think that this offense will look more like the 2022 Chiefs than the 2018 Chiefs. And even then, I think you're going to see the Chiefs run the ball a little more. I know the Chiefs are very pass heavy, even in the red zone or when they're in goal line situations. But given what Kareem Hunt did last year in short yardage situations, and I don't know if Carson Steele, if he's got a chance to stay. I know Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, he'll always battle at the line of scrimmage to get that 1 or 2 yard push to the end zone. I could see the Chiefs trying to utilize the rushing attack more in the red zone. I think that will certainly make a difference. And Kareem Hunt was good at that last year. Antonio says, I like Carson as well. He looked good in the preseason, just couldn't keep the ball tucked properly. Yeah, that was an issue in the regular season. That's the thing. You saw a preseason player and then a regular season version of that same player. Worthy, Rice, Hunt, and Jones, ready to see them on the field. And always Patrick from KCRVA. Danny says, don't even want Mahomes playing a snap, but he is. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's funny because right now I can just say I don't want to see Mahomes in a preseason game, but then when the preseason game actually comes, you want a little bit of entertainment, don't you? Listen, you just don't want to see something that happened in the Todd Haley era. Remember in Todd Haley's first year with the Chiefs in 2009, back when there were 4 preseason games, that 4th preseason game was always handled a little differently depending on the coach. You would see the starters, but only for a couple of snaps. Mid-drive, you would see changes get made. Some teams would just go and put their backups for that 4th game. I still remember the Chiefs had their starters into the second half against the Packers, and the Packers' 4th stringers were out playing the Chiefs starters in that one. That was embarrassing. Like, as long as you don't have anything that looks like that, and listen, obviously you won't when Andy Reid is your head coach, then, that's going to be just fine. Keep in mind, this is training camp. This is all we have to really go off for now. Preseason will be kind of a similar story. But it is the preseason. It is practice. You can't put too much stock on these things. It's important to talk about and review and evaluate, but it's also important to not take it as the end all be all, whatever happens in these games. Can I put that mask on behind me? Maybe another time, not today. Aaron says Washington Square Park is way too small. They would have to take the buildings on the other side of Grand as well. And that's not something I trust the Royals with, because remember when the Royals, they claimed, oh yeah, we're talking to the businesses at the crossroads. And the business owners were like, nope, that is not true. Whereas 119th and Knoll, and again, I know Overland Park would be kind of an obscure area to have a pro sports team, but the Royals would not have to really do any negotiating. That whole area would belong to them, and they've confirmed that they own the mortgage to that area. So they essentially own the land there. When would a move be made to go there? I don't know. When would shovels start to hit the ground? All of that stuff. That's the big issue with all of this, is that the teams are taking longer than they should. I acknowledge and I recognize that this is a big decision that could impact them for a very, very long time. I mean, by the time we're all gone, the next generation that might not even know what the Truman Sports Complex is, they'll see these new stadiums and not have any idea about what the Truman Sports Complex looked like, because when you build brand new stadiums like this, the hope and the idea is you use these stadiums for several decades, a very, very long time. I mean, hell, these are expensive projects as well. But I feel like these projects could have been solved at some point by now. But we're still here, I guess. Henry's asking, how do I feel about the Broncos? I like the Broncos. I like the way Bo Nix played last year. And that defense was the best last year in the NFL when it came to sacks. So Bo Nix going through, and obviously that nice extension there for Cortland Sutton. That's a big deal for them. Bo Nix just getting a little more experience. I think Denver is very close to Kansas City. I still think Kansas City will win the division, but Denver is going to, I think, challenge Kansas City for the division this year. I don't think it's going to be like the NFC North last year, where it was the Vikings and the Lions playing for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I don't think it's going to be like that, at least not for now, but maybe sometime down the line in the future, a couple years from now, would not surprise me if that's the way the Chiefs and Broncos rivalry turns into. But I think for now, this is a Broncos team. They're going to be a playoff team. And I think they'll make it close with Kansas City. The Chargers, I think the Chargers can be good. I still have my reservations about them. I don't understand I think Justin Herbert's an overrated quarterback. He's good, but I've seen some of these top 10 from the media, and I'm seeing people put him at like 5th or 6th in their top quarterback rankings. Why? I don't get it. I don't think that's happening. Speaking of the AFC West, I did want to get into this before I sign off for the night. The Raiders. Do you want to know why the Raiders have been bad? Why they haven't won a playoff game for 22 years and going? They just don't have that winning culture. They just don't. Now, I like Pete Carroll. I'm a big fan of Pete Carroll. And if there's anyone that can go to the Raiders and at least try, give a valid effort to turn that franchise around, I think Pete Carroll's the guy you bring in. And that's exactly what the Raiders did. But this Raiders team, as much as I like Pete Carroll, and I've said this many times, I'll continue to say it. Do I think the Raiders will be good? No. I know some people think they could surprise teams this year because of Pete Carroll, and they feel like Geno Smith is a better option at quarterback than what they had last year with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Okay, I'll believe it when I see it. Because the Raiders should have been good in 2022. Derek Carr had Devontae Adams, which was the domino effect in chasing Tyreek Hill out of the division because of the whole contract negotiation. That went south after that trade. They had Darren Waller. They had Josh Jacobs. You could have not asked for a better wide receiver, tight end, running back trio for Derek Carr. And the Raiders still shit the bed that year. Remember that? All those blown leads. The Raiders, and by the way, what was the narrative last offseason for the Raiders? Oh, Antonio Pierce, the savior. He's going to turn the Raiders around. Well, he didn't even have a job for a full 365 days as the full-time head coach. So the Raiders, they're at a point now where, okay, great, you got Pete Carroll, but you still have to earn the trust of anybody, really. We can't just sit here and just assume the Raiders are going to improve. We've seen this so many times with so many coaches, so many players over the years. There's a reason why this team has a losing culture. Christian Wilkins just recently got cut, and the Raiders, with his guaranteed money, decided to void that. Apparently, Wilkins was not handling his foot injury the way the Raiders felt like he should have. So Wilkins is filing for a grievance to try to get his guaranteed money back. Meanwhile, Adam Schefter is reporting that Christian Wilkins playfully kissed a teammate on the forehead. And that player was offended and wasn't too happy about it, which I actually don't blame. I would not want anyone other than my significant other kissing me on the forehead. Which leads me to my next question about the Raiders here. What's the culture with that team, especially when you look the last few years? You have this whole drama with Christian Wilkins not handling his injury properly, according to the Raiders, and then kissing teammates in the locker room. The Raiders last year in training camp, they were playing with puppets. Remember that? And then this year, they're kissing teammates on the forehead. I mentioned last year that rookie who was, playing with the doll and looked at the camera and made a comment he shouldn't have made about Patrick Mahomes. That did not go very well for him. You have the Henry Ruggs incident from a couple of years ago. Devontae Adams shoving a player. Listen, none of these instances or events relate to one another, but there is a negative culture. Like, you have these set of events that keep happening. What's the leadership? Max Crosby is obviously your best player, but where is that leadership beyond him? I just like the Raiders in general, just overall. There's a reason why they haven't won a playoff game in 22 years, and it's probably going to continue for several more years. This team just does not have a winning culture. For a franchise, for an organization who does have a rich history, and their motto is commitment to excellence, and that infamous quote, "Just win, baby." That is a very ancient mantra at this point. When you look at the Chiefs and the Raiders, those two teams are galaxies apart. The Raiders, their last playoff win was in 2002? And they've been essentially bad since then. They've had a couple winning seasons, a couple of playoff appearances, and they weren't able to do anything with it. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs, they had their attempt in the 2000s under Dick Vermeil as head coach. And then they ran into this period from 07 to 12 where they were one of the worst teams in the NFL. And they quickly turned it around. Meanwhile, teams like the Raiders and the Browns, I mean, they're still bad. At least the Browns will have won a playoff game. When you look at the Raiders, like, what is the most significant thing to happen to the Raiders in the last 22 years? Okay, got a couple of playoff appearances, but didn't do anything with it. What, you beat the Chiefs on Christmas? Is that the best? Is that what you want to be known for? Beating the Chiefs on Christmas, beating the Chiefs once every 3 years? Is that what you want to be known for? I mean, that's almost like K-State beating KU in basketball. Like, that's great, don't get me wrong, and I understand the machinations in college are much different than pro sports, but is that ultimately what you want to be known for? Just being able to pull off an upset every once in a while? This is a team that just as Joshua says they should have never let Jacobs go. Jacobs was on a podcast, and I think it was Bussin' with the Boys. Yeah, it was Bussin' with the Boys. And remember when the Raiders were standing on midfield doing their thing on the Chiefs logo? Josh Jacobs said on that podcast, he's like, you're not going to see me on that logo. We are their little stepbrothers. He said that. Josh Jacobs said that. And now he was a member of the Packers, or he is a member of the Packers now. So, I mean, he can kind of say whatever he wants now, but he's making it very clear that the Raiders, his own teammates, decided to do dumbass things. And by the way, they got their asses kicked in that game. So that was not a good look. Listen, sometimes it can take a while for teams to get it right. This has been a team that's been bad for 2 decades and going. You have a guy kissing a teammate on the forehead and it's not perceived well, which I don't blame. The Henry Ruggs, what he did, taking the life of a very innocent woman and and her dog, Devontae Adams, the puppet last year with that rookie, that defensive back. I mean, there are just so many things. I just kind of wonder, like, and I know the Chiefs have had their issues over the years with off the field and maybe some attitude issues over the years, but they've done their best to straighten that out. The players who have gotten in trouble, they've looked at them and said, hey, look, you can't be doing this if you want to play in Kansas City. I mean, they've given Kareem Hunt a second chance, and he's kept his nose very clean. Rashee Rice, he's stayed out of trouble for the last year and a half since that car accident that happened in Dallas. I remember Justin Reed made a comment saying he can cover one of the tight ends for the Bengals when they were getting ready to meet in 2022. Andy Reid was not even happy about that comment. Kind of a harmless comment, but Andy Reid, I mean, listen, Andy Reid's been around a long time to where maybe 100 people will disagree with what he does, or maybe his philosophy on things, but he's Andy Reid. He can have whatever philosophy he wants because he's earned it up to this point. Raiders drafting hasn't been good either. No, it hasn't. Especially when they had 5 first-round draft picks in 2 or 3 years, and they basically stunk on all of them. Yeah. This team is not really going anywhere anytime soon. They've got great players. Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, that running back Ashton Genty, I think he's going to be good this year. I like Geno Smith. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. In fact, nor do the executives that voted recently on ESPN survey. That team, if they want to start winning games, start putting together a winning culture. Maybe Pete Carroll can do that. I don't know. But with this Wilkins incident recently, it just gives you an idea why this team does not just win, baby. Doing the complete opposite, in fact. All right. Shorter podcast today. Appreciate you guys joining me on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Huge shout out to all of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, a lot of new followers in the last week, especially with the content and training camp, all of this stuff. So a big shout out to all of you newcomers on the podcast. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the Chiefs Zone on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@thechiefszone. Just go there, subscribe, follow me on YouTube. Would greatly appreciate it. The numbers on the YouTube channel have gone up in the last week, so I thank you guys so much for that. Please tell a friend about the YouTube channel, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and send it to a buddy or two that would love Chiefs content, more Chiefs podcasts that they can listen to. Until then, my name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I will talk to you all on Wednesday. Take care.